Hello and welcome to Revive Your Soul. In this video I want to talk about the 6 signs that indicate you're still in the trauma bond. We develop bonds for survival in childhood with our caregivers. So when we're threatened in some way, it's them we turn to for protection. And trauma bonding is one of the reasons it's so hard to heal from these toxic and emotionally abusive relationships. And the damage caused puts you in a state of confusion because you had no idea the abuse was taking place. These bonds can be created within hours, and this is why companies and communities use situations or events to bring people together where they bond over a mutual project. But what happens is, in emotionally abusive and toxic relationships, the bonds are created, they're one-sided. You bonded with them, they didn't bond with you, but you turn to them, the abuser, for protection. Bonding is a process that makes people more important to each other, and it's a connection that strengthens over time. But trauma bonding is used to gain power and control over you. In the previous video I spoke about the idealization stage, where they position themselves as the caregiver. They showered you with attention, they gave you gifts, meals out, days out, manufacturing a love that you may never have experienced before. Then they move on to the devaluation stage with the slight put downs. They might use triangulation to create jealousy, or they might gaslight you to make you question everything. You might have rationalised their behaviour believing they actually cared about you. And this is creating even more bonds. The damage they cause puts you in a state of confusion. You had no idea this abuse was going on. It's a bit like Chinese water torture. It happened very slowly and it drove you insane. And what it does is it creates a cocktail of hormones that keep you addicted, keep you in that relationship, keep you hooked to the abuser. And there's this push and pull of emotions that happens, and they change the rules constantly. And what they're doing is they're getting you hooked up to these hormonal rushes. On average, people go back to these relationships between 7 to 8 times. So the 6 signs, so number 1 is hoping they're going to come back, or holding the space open for them to allow them to do that. And you might find that you're not doing something, not going somewhere, not wearing something, not eating something because they wouldn't approve. You might be experiencing the pain from the loss of the relationship, missing them, and your self-esteem is so low, and you might be questioning what's wrong with you, why you're not good enough, and what you did wrong. And in some way, by hoping they'll come back, you're going to prove yourself wrong, that they do care about you and that you are worthy of love. You are good enough. Number 2 is hoovering. So this is their attempts and yours. You might believe that their hoovering attempts are proof that they actually do care about you, that they are genuine and they do want you back. What you might find is that you're lowering your boundaries, agreeing to things because you just want them back in your life. You just want that hormonal drug. You might experience circular conversations where you think you've agreed to something, only for them to turn the whole thing around and start that process again. And it just continues and goes round and round and round. You might attempt at contacting them. Ask yourself for an honest answer as to why you're doing that. You might rationalise your behaviour with all the effort that you put into that relationship, and it might be that you don't want to see somebody else step into your shoes and step into your fake future. And honestly ask what they are getting. What was your relationship like? Because they won't have changed. They will always be that person. They just might be wearing a different mask. Learn new tricks. Sustain something a bit longer. Their future will be as fake as yours. They will be experiencing the behaviour that you experienced. This isn't love, this is the addiction of the hormones. This is the bonding that happened. Number 3, if you're still excusing their behaviour, that's another sign that you might still be bonded to them, or you might be protecting them. So when somebody points out their behaviour, you might justify it. You might talk about the awful childhood that they had, or the way they were treated in other relationships. Still protecting them. Number 4, still thinking about them, or spending a lot of time thinking about them, is another sign that you're still trauma bonded. if your first waking thought is of them, what they're doing, who are they with, are they missing you, do they still love you, did they love you? These are all signs. Number 5 is that you're still trapped in their version of reality. You might be triggered by their new life. You might still be wondering what you did wrong. Number 6, if you're still taking responsibility for their actions. If you hadn't done, if you hadn't said, if you hadn't behaved, then they wouldn't have behaved, done, whatever it is that is your situation. I was being interviewed for a podcast about a year ago. I was talking about taking responsibility. The interviewer looked quite shocked, or sounded quite shocked, that I would say such a thing because it would be triggering wounds. And of course this person that has been abused was the victim, not the abuser. When I talk about taking responsibility, it's acknowledging that I had the power to do something. This is acknowledging that I saw red flags. I saw things that weren't quite right. And I was bonded. And at the time I knew I should have walked away, I didn't. There was something in me that saw something in another person, a few other people, because I haven't just done this once, I've done it a few times, that wanted to maybe heal, maybe wanted to help this other person. I am responsible for my own reality. I might have been a victim to emotional abuse. I might have been in toxic relationships, but now the responsibility is mine. The responsibility of moving forward and doing the healing that I needed to do, to look at the wounds. So any of these elements, any of these 6 elements that are saying to you you're still in this trauma bond, look where they come from. Listen to your body, listen to the situations or the voices that you hear. Do they come from your abuser, or have you also heard them somewhere else? You didn't deserve to be treated the way you were treated. But now it's your responsibility. And watching lots of videos and going through YouTube is helping you unpick and understand, because that cognitive dissonance that happened where you thought something didn't feel right, you had that gut feeling something wasn't right, and they justified their behaviour. And they told you it was your fault. You might have been too sensitive. You might have been told them about other relationships, and they're telling you that it's your fault because you have trust issues, because you've experienced this before, that you're actually you're putting that relationship on them. Trust your gut was telling you. And I urge you to go back and look at that, not hide away from it. But this is about moving forward. As I said, watching these videos, you're slowly unpicking what happened, the reality of their life and how they believe things should work. You now need to go and reprogram, because that wasn't your reality. You saw those red flags, you knew something was wrong. If you still believe that if you'd done something differently, or you'd said something differently, you're still in that trauma bond. This journey takes courage. So if you can relate to any of these, then it is likely that you're still stuck in that cycle. And if you're watching lots of videos, it is a sign that you're ready to heal. You're trying to understand. I remember at the beginning of my journey, when I was going through those cycles, trying to unpick what had happened. And I'd go down into that dark hole of this is all my fault, if only I'd said, if only I'd done, if I hadn't done. And then I'd watch a video and it would show me that this behaviour was wrong. So I accept that I had some control right at the beginning. And I chose to ignore that. And I take responsibility for that. And I have to take responsibility for the damage it did to the relationships around me as well. Don't put a time limit on your healing. It takes as long as it takes for you. But equally, don't get caught down a rabbit hole that you can't get out of. Make sure that everything you're doing is working towards healing the wounds that you've got. Healing the wounds that you had before you met this person. People underestimate the length of time it takes to heal from these relationships. Everything you believe to be true is now turning out to be a lie. Things like when you ask yourself, did they really love me? Was anything about this relationship real? What you need to do is give yourself time to grieve the relationship. And you need to find a tribe that is going to help you with your healing. Anyone who says that shouldn't you be over this by now has never experienced this type of emotional abuse. And avoid the vultures, who are the people that want you to stay in that place where you're hurting, who are getting recognition in some form from your pain and from helping you, and who are re-triggering you. Find people that have been through this, have experienced this. Find groups that can help you, that can show you there is an end to this, that you will come out stronger and feeling more whole. It is your responsibility to find those wounds. It is your responsibility to heal those wounds. And I say this a lot, but you will see the gift eventually. There is a gift in this, and that is the feeling of being whole. Now, you can find trauma bonding and other terms that I've used in my book, The A to Z of Emotional Abuse, like the circular conversation, idealisation, devaluation. They're all in there, and I'll put a link to this in the description below. So in this video, I explained what trauma bonding was, the 6 signs that you might still be in trauma bonding, and about taking responsibility for your own healing. So if you found the video useful, please like, share and comment so other people can be helped on their journey as well. Sending you loads and loads and loads of love.